Hello and good morning, everybody, and happy Watershed Wednesday. Evan Griggs, educator for Minnesota Trout Unlimited, coming at you live. You're in luck because we are in a polar lockdown Arctic freeze here in Minnesota. So that means most of our programs canceled this week. So I'm going to regale you all with my fly tying skills. Don't get too excited though. I don't tie pretty flies, I tie efficient flies. So today I'll be teaching you a little bit about the basics of fly tying, and I'll also show you how to tie one of my favorite flies. So a fly is the lure that is used in fly fishing. Fly fishing is a style and type of fishing, and flies are what we use to imitate something that's living, but instead of using that living thing for bait, we'll tie on fake materials like fur or feathers or foam or flashy tinsel, what have you, and use those things, tie them onto a hook to make it look like that real thing. So since it's so cold out there, it's really got me missing summer. But out of all fish species right now in Minnesota, the one species who probably misses summer more than me right now is the smallmouth bass. I love fishing for those guys in the summertime, especially when it gets too hot to chase our trout in the streams. What's super fun about smallmouth bass is they like to eat stuff on the surface. They also like stuff that makes a lot of noise, that's really bright and flashy. They're basically the perfect fish. Now the reason why bass and especially smallies are probably missing summer right now, their metabolism is directly related with temperature. So the hotter and warmer it is, especially the water, the more they like to eat. The more they like to eat, the more fun they are to fish for. So today what we'll be tying is one of my favorites. This guy I call the lemon drop of doom. It's a surface fly. It's got a foam head so it'll float on top of the water. It's got a nice feathery tail so it'll wiggle when it gets wet. But the really important thing, see that flat face right there? So when I pull this lure in back towards me on top of the water, this acts like a snow plow. And every time I pull it in, it makes a big splash. And what that splash does is send a lot of vibrations and a lot of noise through that water column, which the bass or whatever other fish are down there will pick up with their sensory organ, the lateral line. Those vibrations really make them hungry. So in case you've never tied a fly before, I'll show you everything that you need here. I'll put the lemon drop in the vise here. This vise is what we need to hold our hook so we can work on it and put all our materials on. We need a bobbin and a spool of thread. This is how we attach our materials to our hook. And we also need a handy dandy pair of scissors to cut stuff and give them haircuts sometimes. We also need some super glue, some hooks. I've got some pre-made popper heads, some yellow marabou feathers, which come from turkey butts, and some saddle hackle feathers. Let's get to it. Alright, so there's only really a couple of hard parts in fly tying. Drop them! Boop. And those hard parts are getting your thread onto the hook and getting your thread off of the hook. So I'll show you some of those parts here. Some parts of the hook, the curvy part we call the curve or the bend, the pointy part we call the point, straight part we call the shank, round part on the front, that's our eye. So this is our bobbin. I like to pinch my bobbin right where all those tubes meet in the middle with my pointer and my thumb. I'm going to pinch the thread that's coming out the tube just a couple inches away. Make an X, hold it straight up against that hook shank, wrap 4 times forward towards the eye, 4 times back, and voila, your thread is on there, easy as pie. Next thing we're going to do now is we need to make a base of thread on our shank, kind of between the middle of the shank and the hook eye. We need kind of a thicker base layer. What that's going to do is give a base for our super glue and our foam popper head to sit on, so it doesn't spin around or slide around. So to do that, we're just going to wrap away from ourselves, back and forth from the middle to the hook eye a few times until we get a nice base layer. Probably do this, I don't know, I haven't, what is this, number 3? I have no idea. We're going to try and do it probably 6, 7, or 8 times. 4, 5, 6. Cool. Alright, so that's my base layer. Here's hard part number 2, getting our thread off of the hook. Before we snip this, we need to do some half hitch knots. Otherwise our fly is going to go it's not going to end up holding together. So we're going to switch hands. We were holding our bobbin in our dominant hand. We're now going to hold it in our non-dominant hand. I like to use my handy dandy pointer finger. Place that in the middle of the thread. Kind of your finger right on top of the thread, kind of in the middle of your fingernail. Wrap in front of the thread that goes towards your hook, over your nail. Place your nail right onto the hook eye and use it like a water slide. Pull that thread tight as it slides onto that hook. And what that does is tie us some knots. Do that 3, 4, 5 times. Snip it. You're good to go. So the next part is we need to get our popper head on here. Notice there's no pre-made hole in this one, so we need to make a hole so it can easily slide onto our hook. For that, we're going to use a tool called a bodkin. It's just a pointy piece of metal and some fire. So we're going to warm this baby up. This will help melt through the foam like hot butter. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to find the middle of the back. We're going to point it right through. That should go through right on the middle, low middle of our blockhead here. Once you do that, you can test it out on your hook, make sure it looks good. Heck yeah, looks beautiful. And then we can make it permanent. Put on some super glue. We'll lock it on there. And we're going to slide on our blockhead. Pop it just past the hook eye. There we go. Perfect. Voila. Make sure it's nice and straight. Looks like it. And now we'll let that dry. Then we'll put on our floofy tail bits. Woohoo! Alright, so we've got to start our thread on there again. So we're just going to go right behind this blockhead. Wrap it a little back and forth a few times. And we're going to kind of go back to the start of the bend. Now the base layer this time provides some traction for our materials. So the first thing we're going to put on, I forgot to mention this one. This is Crystal Flash. This will just add a little shimmy sparkle on there. Make it look real yummy to any fish swimming by. And so I'll just take a little clump like that. We're just going to tie it in. We're going to go a little past half, right at that hook bend. Tie that baby in there. Notice you have a little up front. Go ahead and fold that back. So, added our flash. Next thing we're going to do is add some marabou feathers. We're actually going to add 2 of them on here. So grab 1, grab 2. So notice they have really floofy tips. We're just going to use those floofy tips. So isolate those. Put them on right on top of where you tied your other stuff. We'll tie our first one on the top. Good. Take our second one. Isolate the tips. Mine I can roll over. That's pretty sweet. Tie that up. Second one on the bottom. There we go. And we're going to cut off all this extra stuff using our little scissors. Bye. And bye. Good. Kind of smooth the back. Clean up the front end. Wrap, wrap, wrap. That just locks everybody on there good too. Nice and secure. There we go. So that's our tail with a little flash. When marabou gets wet, it gets really wiggly, just like a minnow tail. But now we have to cover up this little gap with a hackle feather. So I'm going to take one of those, just isolate one feather, pop it off by the stem, and these guys are fun. We're going to pinch it right at the tip, run your finger down it, whoop, so it unzips all those fibers, and we're going to tie it in right at this isolated tip here. Boom. Okay. Now, notice I moved my thread right behind the blockhead. Now we're going to wrap this hackle forward, nice and close together, and as you wrap, you're going to pull back these fibers each time so they don't get smushed by the next wrap. There we go. I kind of like some of the fluffy stuff. So once you get there, tie it off. We'll give it a haircut again. And then we can do our knots. Alright, switch hands. Here comes the knots. To get around the blockhead, I like to use 2 fingers. I can lift it over that, then slide it right behind. Dun, dun, dun. Pull her tight, snip it close. I'll throw in a little bit of super glue right there on the thread wraps, make sure everything's locked on. But, ladies and germs, we got ourselves a lemon drop. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you want to see more tying videos. But until it warms up, this is where I'll be. Take it easy.